What is going on, everybody? Episode 2 of the Offsetting Penalties podcast. Today we're talking some football. Last pod, the first pod, we talked MMA, we talked UFC, and that was great. But the name of the podcast is Offsetting Penalties, and it would be very wrong if we didn't talk about some football, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm recording this Monday night. The Seahawks-Texans game just wrapped up like 30 minutes ago, late game. Weird game. We'll talk a little bit about that, but not much. Not much happened in that game. But what we're going to do is we're just going to recap Week 8. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on some of the key games. I'm not going to cover every game because not every game is worth talking about. We're going to talk about some of the notable ones, and we're going to go from there. This is the first football episode, so to all my football fans, this is for you, and to the people who enjoy MMA and don't care about football, you know what? You guys can wait because we'll have 2 UFC pods coming this week. UFC 321, baby. I'm excited, but 321 or 322? I think it's 321. But anyways, without further ado, let's talk some football, fellas. And week 7, my notes say week 9. Week 7 is in the books. Quite a lot of games to cover. The first one I want to talk about here, Philadelphia Eagles. They get the win. They lost 2 in a row. 2 bad ones. Philly media was about, dude, it was getting ugly in Philly, but they pulled out a good win against the Vikings. Philly moves to 5-2. Vikings move to 3-3. And what I really want to talk about in this game, I think we watched the Eagles win the Super Bowl last year. And when we watched Philly lose the Super Bowl, or win the Super Bowl, it was on the back of Saquon Barkley and that offensive line. And I think part of the issue the Eagles have struggled at times this year is because they've stuck so heavily to that run identity with the O-line and Barkley. It hasn't worked. Like Barkley, I don't know where it is now, but coming into this game against Minnesota, he wasn't even on pace for 1,000 rushing yards on the year, which is crazy to think that the guy who went for 2,000 last year, that happens, man. When you give the guy the ball a bunch and then the O-line gets reshuffled a little bit, it's bound to happen. You know, we saw this with Christian McCaffrey. Now, Christian McCaffrey had the Achilles tendonitis and stuff, but it feels like anytime a running back has a huge year where they touch the ball a ton, there's always a drop off the next year, and we see it. And it's not necessarily all Barkley's fault. The O-line is not grading out how they have in years past. But what we saw them do against Minnesota was crazy. Jalen Hurts went for 326 passing yards and 3 passing TDs. A.J. Brown went 4 for 121 and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith went 9 for 183 and 1 touchdown. The weird part about that is Minnesota is not like a pass funnel defense. Like what they were really good at coming into this game was stopping the pass, and what they were a little susceptible to was the run game. And they shut down the run game, and they got thrown all over. And what we've seen this year is when the Eagles' offenses look best, it's been when Jalen Hurts throws the ball. And when the offensive coordinator and Nick Sirianni, they put their trust in their Super Bowl MVP quarterback, and they say, hey, we're going to let you throw the ball. Yeah, he had that miss. He missed Devontae Smith on a bad touchdown in that Thursday night game against the Giants. But, you know, Jalen Hurts has proven himself to be an above-average passer in this league. I think people forget that because people think about the running ability and the tush pushes and all that, which I understand. But Jalen Hurts has shown that he can pass the ball and he can sling the rock, and he showed it in this game against a really good passing defense in the Vikings. And I thought it was just an unbelievable statement win by the Eagles to show that, hey, the 2 losses in a row, okay, we just went into Minnesota, into a really tough environment, beat up on a really good team, and we did it against their strengths. I thought that said a lot, and I think they really need to lean into just letting Jalen Hurts sling it. And if you do that more, I think that will open up the run game naturally. Not to say you shouldn't involve Saquon Barkley, but I think they need to shift their priorities a little bit and just understand that the identity of this year's team is different than last year's. They won a Super Bowl last year, that's great. The rest of the league changes. You can't just hope to stick to the same formula and run it back. That's all I have to say about that. Eagles win 28-22. Really good performance by them. They looked really good. Still not where they need to be Super Bowl contenders, but I think if they lean into this pass-heavy thing, I think we're going to see the Eagles do really well. That was the only morning game I really wanted to go into. The afternoon games were crazy. There's 2 games that I want to cover in the afternoon extensively. The first one, you saw it on the thumbnail, the Colts, are they legit? They beat the Chargers 38-24. The Colts have the best record in the NFL right now. They're 6-1. There's no other team with 6 wins, and the only other team with 1 loss is Green Bay, who also has a tie. The Colts are the best team record-wise in the league right now, And the question, I think it's hard for a lot of people to believe, is this team legit or not? And even myself, they have one loss, and it was against the Rams, who we know are legit. And it was basically a broken coverage, like a blown assignment that won the Rams that game. Because if that blown assignment's there, who knows? Does Indianapolis get a stop against the Rams, and do the Rams not score that game-winning touchdown? I don't know. But if you're 6-1 and your one loss is against a Super Bowl caliber team like the Rams, that's impressive, man. That is really freaking impressive. So the Colts are legit. Daniel Jones went for 288 and 2 touchdowns, and Jonathan Taylor is on Offensive Player of the Year watch. I mean, that dude, the betting odds have him as the favorite right now, and he justifiably is. Christian McCaffrey's there. We'll talk about him a little later. But Jonathan Taylor is a dog, man. He was a couple of years ago, like the number 1 pick in fantasy drafts. Like, people forget. It's so easy. The way that the NFL landscape moves, it's so different year to year, right? This is what makes the NFL king, right? Over leagues like the MLB and the NBA, year after year, there is so much parity in the league, right? You have the constants like the Chiefs. I get it. Every league's going to have that. That's impossible not to have in sports. But things can change so drastically within a year. And the Colts went from a laughingstock team, Jonathan Taylor can't stay healthy. All of a sudden, we're looking at him going, holy crap, are these guys going to win the AFC? Which they might. I think right now it's pretty safe to say KC is the favorites, especially with the way their offense is playing, and they got Rashee Rice back. But the Colts are legit, man. Steichen has the offense playing unbelievable. The one worry I have, the defense is, a little, like, it's hit or miss. Now, granted, they're missing their all-pro corner, Mooney Ward, but the defense is a little hit or miss, and it's really hard to not think back to the Vikings last year. Because the Vikings won like 14 games last year. They won 14 or 15 games last year. They were incredible. But at the end of the year, Sam Darnold and the team started to crumble, and it almost felt like they were playing so good, but then when it really mattered most, their quarterback, who hadn't really had a ton of playoff experience, kind of folded under the pressure. Is that going to happen with Daniel Jones? I'm not sure. Now, Daniel Jones has won a playoff. He won a playoff game with the Giants. It's to be seen, but for right now, just enjoy this, because the Colts haven't been good in a bit, and it's fun to watch them winning games. And, they went into LA and they beat a good Chargers team. Now, the Chargers are beat up, and the Chargers have no O-line. The run game's a struggle right now. They'll be okay. They need to get Hampton back, and they need to get their tackle Joe Alt back, because if they don't get those two guys back specifically, and there's other pieces as well, they're going to be in serious trouble, because really they started the year hot, and then ever since that start to the year, it has been, like, even last week against Miami, we saw what happened to Miami on Sunday, and the Chargers were struggling against Miami a week ago. Yikes. But regardless of if the Chargers are good or not, whatever, let's give Indianapolis their praise. They went to the building that they lost in earlier in the year against the Rams. They played a hell of a game. Jonathan Taylor's playing like an Offensive Player of the Year. Shane Steichen's looking like a Coach of the Year candidate. They're legit, man, and let's enjoy it while we do, because it could fold. It could fold, but if I were a betting man, I'd say they're pretty safely the front runner for the 1 seed. The schedule isn't ridiculous. They do play KC down the line. That'll be a fun game. Yeah, I'm really enjoying watching Colts football right now. The other afternoon game, however, this is the one everyone's talking about. The Broncos beat the Giants 33-32. Absolutely crazy game. The Broncos hadn't scored a point going into the fourth quarter, and they scored 33 points in the fourth quarter, which is unreal. Bo Nix crushed me in fantasy football, crushed me. 279 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, 48 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. It was weird, because it was almost like 2 different games. Like, there was the 3-quarter game and the 1-quarter game, and it just felt like something happened in that fourth quarter and it just flipped. The Broncos, they're 5-2, and it hasn't been a smooth 5-2. It hasn't been like a really aesthetically pleasing 5-2, like some ugly games. They barely beat the Jets in London last week. This game, they had to score 33 in 1 quarter to be able to pull it out. But you can't say enough about, the heart of a team if they're down like that and then they're able to rally back. I think on the flip side of things with the Giants hype train has been real. Everyone's hyping up Jackson Dart. Everyone's hyping up Ken Scadaboo, and they've looked phenomenal. And the Giants have looked phenomenal, and they have an unbelievable front. I think part of the reason the Broncos were allowed to get in this game was the Giants started play calling really conservatively, especially on defense. They were just dropping a bunch into coverage. They weren't trying to make Bo Nix uncomfortable. They really let the Broncos, specifically the Giants on defense, they really let the Broncos offense get into a rhythm. And we just saw what the Broncos offense is capable of. You know, they need more consistency. If they start, playing with that type of rhythm the rest of the year, because the Broncos have an unbelievable defense. Don't let the 32 points fool you that they gave up 32 points to the Giants. The Broncos defense is the best in the league, in my opinion. So, man, this is gonna be wild to watch down the stretch. Is Denver gonna have to pull out these crazy victories, or is it just gonna have to be more of a team effort the rest of the way? Because this is not a cohesive game by any means, but they scored 33 and a quarter and got it done. And with the Giants, man, they're young. They're starting a rookie quarterback. They're starting a rookie running back. They're young. Any team that starts rookies like the Giants are at key positions, there's going to be growing pains. That pick that Jackson Dart threw that really let the Broncos get back into the game, that was horrible. You can't fault the Giants, but you got to realize these are the growing pains that come with starting young players. And a lot of times the growing pains don't look like choking giant fourth quarter leads like that. Unfortunately, that's what it was for Jackson Dart and the Giants against the Broncos. Unbelievable game, one of the best games I've watched in a while. Maybe the best single quarter of football I've watched in a while, because after the Broncos came back and took the lead, the Giants drove right down the field and they scored, and it took a missed extra point. Like if the Giants don't miss that extra point, the Broncos kick a field goal, it goes into overtime. Who knows what's happening in overtime with how wild that game was. Really fun to watch. That was an amazing game. Not a game that many were thinking coming into the weekend, this is going to be the barn burner, but it was unbelievable. Fun game to watch. The Giants will be okay. These are growing pains with rookies. And, the Broncos, it was incredible, but let's see some consistency across 4 quarters, across games. It's been very up and down this year. There hasn't been consistency, and I want to see it. Now, granted, the Broncos are young too. Bo Nix is only in his second year. I get it, but they were a playoff team last year. There's some standards for this team, and you're not going to be able to score 33 in every fourth quarter that you play. So the first 3 quarters were alarming for Denver. Good for them for getting it right. All that matters is that you won the game. Now let's move on from here. Sunday Night Football. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Niners beat the Falcons 20-10. Niners improved to 5-2, which is just ridiculous. So I'm a Niner fan. You're going to hear the Niner bias come out on this podcast. I apologize. I'm going to talk about this next game with the Lions too. Coaching and culture matters so much in this league. You have the Niners who are 5-2. You have the Lions who are 5-2. Those two teams are so beat up. And hell, you could throw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in there, because even though they just lost to the Lions tonight on Monday Night Football, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are unbelievably beat up too. These 3 teams are so injured, and they're all at 5 wins in a loaded NFC. The NFC is going to be a bloodbath in the playoffs this year. There's 6 teams that have 5 wins right now, right? It's Niners, Rams, Seahawks, Lions. That's 4 off the bat. Bucs. The Packers are 4-1-1. The Bears are above average. This conference is a bloodbath. Anyways, what the Niners showed on Sunday night and what the Lions showed on Monday night, coaching and culture matters so much more than the roster, than the talent. The talent and the roster is great. If you don't have good coaching, and if you don't have a culture in the building, it's not gonna freaking matter, man. Because we're seeing this with teams. We saw this with the Tennessee Titans. I mean, the Tennessee Titans, it doesn't matter if they start number 1 overall pick Cam Ward or Will Levis or whatever. They just can't get anything going. There's no culture in that building, and that's why they've been such a disaster these past couple of years. The Niners and the Lions have instilled a football culture, and they have unbelievable coaching. And despite injury after injury, they're playing guys that the average fan, these are primetime games. There's fans watching these games who can't recognize half of the Niners defense or a single Lions defensive back, and they're finding a way to win games. Coaching and culture matters, because when a guy gets hurt, like a Fred Warner, like a Nick Bosa, you just have to have the culture in the building to know, I don't care who it is behind you, you need to come in and this is the standard. I'm not asking you to play as good as Fred Warner or Nick Bosa, but you just need to come in and play your ass off and hit people and play with full effort. And that's what the Niners did against Atlanta, and it was a shock for Atlanta, right? specifically with the Niners, I mean, Christian McCaffrey, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had like a ridiculous amount on the ground. It was his best rushing game of the year, which was an issue for the Niners. I think something people were looking at, I heard a lot of dialogue at the beginning of the year that McCaffrey's, maybe washed isn't the word, but he lost a step or he isn't quite as quick. And I didn't see the same game because, frankly, I thought McCaffrey had the worst run blocking he's had since probably he was in Carolina. George Kittle being back in the lineup is so monumental for the 49ers. The run game changes night and day, right? Jake Tonjes did okay in Kittle's, as Kittle's replacement while Kittle was down. Kittle is the best run blocking tight end in the league. He's the best tight end in the league, but he's the best run blocking tight end in the league specifically. And when you take him out of the lineup, not only does that take away, like one of your better receiving options, if not your best receiving option, it takes away an unbelievable blocker. And him being back in the lineup, just the lanes the Niners had, they haven't had the entire year, it was truly remarkable to watch. And to see that team, I've been a Niners fan my entire life. I'm named after Joe Montana. I've never watched a Niners team like I have this year. And I don't know if this is going to be sustainable or not, but through 7 weeks, this has been so fun to watch because, all these injuries, those are not fun to watch. The injuries suck. But to see all these guys that were not on the team last year or are young or have never really played this amount of playing time and they're coming in and they're just playing so hard, it's unbelievable to watch. The Niners, Kyle Shanahan, I mentioned earlier, Shane Steichen's a coach of the year candidate. Kyle Shanahan's right there with him for what he's doing with this roster right now. It's just absolutely remarkable. And to be a Niner fan, I'm very proud of this Niners team that I'm watching right now because there's a bunch of young guys who have not played meaningful football in the National Football League, and they're out there playing their asses off. On the flip side, Atlanta, we were just, a week ago, Monday Night Football, they welcomed the Bills into their building, and they, put a beating on the Bills. Like they had Josh Allen in hell. They were running the ball so well with Bijan. I'm noticing with the Falcons, they might just not be a road team, man, because their best performances of the year have been at home against Washington, against Buffalo, even against Tampa Bay. They lost that game against Tampa Bay, but they sure as hell looked a lot better than they did against the Niners on Sunday night. Or we could even go back a couple weeks further, and they lost 30-0 to the Carolina Panthers on the road. I mean, the fact that they lost 30-0 to the Panthers is crazy. That's madness. And they might just not be a road team. They might be a dome team. And you know what? If that's what it is, that's what it is. Penix, you see the flashes, but he's just got to put it together. I mean, the Niners were hitting him, and now he's got a bone bruise or something. Not ideal. Bijan didn't really have any running room in that game, and really the only way they could get Bijan going was throwing it to him in space, which is not a bad idea. That's what the Niners did these first few weeks, and Atlanta's interesting. They've got a really good defense. Obviously they have Bijan and they have Drake London, who are two of the most talented players in the league at their positions. But maybe they're just not a road team. And you know what? I hate to say it, but you're probably not winning your division. It's probably Tampa Bay winning your division. Hell, even Carolina's got a better record than you right now. So if you want to make it to the playoffs, you're going to have to play some road games. I could see the Falcons sneaking in as like a 7 seed to the playoffs. I mean, they were close last year. I think the Falcons are still another year away. The defense is great. But I don't know if it's a coaching thing, if it's a Penix thing, what it is, but they've got to fix some things. Monday Night Football, Lions, Buccaneers, this game just happened. I'm going to talk about this more because this deserves to be talked about more. Coaching and culture matters. It does. End of discussion. The Lions, the second Dan Campbell walked into that building, he instilled a football culture. And it's been apparent since day one because there hasn't been a single game the Lions have played under Dan Campbell where they haven't played hard. And tonight, I'm a football nerd. I know a large majority of the NFL rosters. Right? It's hard for me. It's very rare for me to turn on a game and go, oh, I've never heard of that player before. The Lions had 3 of them out there tonight at defensive back. I was like, who's that? Who's that? I couldn't even tell you their names right now here on this podcast. I should have written them down in my notes. Very unprofessional of me. I apologize. They had DBs playing out there who maybe I'm wrong, have not played meaningful NFL football, similar to the Niners. And they are playing so hard against a Tampa Bay team that's, been winning games and been really good. And it's just incredible to see teams that are so beat up, and no matter how beat up they are, they have this football culture and this coaching staff that just says, we don't care who's out there. We're going to punch you in the mouth and we're going to play football. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's on that field, as long as there's 11 guys with 11 chin straps, we're gonna play ball and we're gonna hit you. And it was awesome to watch the Lions do that tonight against a Bucs team that had a lot of hype. Baker Mayfield was the MVP favorite by many people's, in many people's eyes coming into that game. And the Lions got it done, held the Bucs to 9 points. Both teams are 5-2 now. Just incredible. The defense looked incredible. The offense, didn't look amazing except for one man, Jahmyr Gibbs, 218 total yards and 2 touchdowns. He looked awesome. I was talking to my buddy. He looks like prime Chris Johnson. Like, he just does. He just, like, the speed in the open field, it's ridiculous. He is. It's really crazy to watch the NFL right now, because I think there's a very good chance 10 years from now we look at the NFL in 2025 in this era as the running back golden years, as the running back golden age, because the amount of talent we have at running back in the league, it's an embarrassment of riches for the NFL. And it's truly awesome to see, because I think in today's game we're so used to these pass frenzies. That's where the game's getting at. It's at teams throwing the ball a bunch and quarterbacks throwing 400 yards. To see the elite running backs, there's like, when people talk about, who are the top 5 running backs in the league, it's like hard to pick, because there's like 10 that you could put there. Obviously McCaffrey and Taylor have been the 2 best this year. Bijan, of course, as well. But then you've got the people like Gibbs. Josh Jacobs is incredible. Devon Achane is freaking incredible. I think people sleep on Kyren Williams a lot. I think Kyren Williams, I don't like him as a player, because he's a Niner fan here. But, Kyren Williams is a really good running back. And Saquon Barkley, of course. Like, we're in a golden age of running backs right now. And it's really fun to watch, because these run games, it's not like boring pound the rock football. It's, like exciting. We're using these running backs in different ways. Christian McCaffrey caught a 3rd and 13 seam route, right? Bijan Robinson's playing slot receiver. Jahmyr Gibbs is the most explosive runner in the league, probably. Devon Achane's right there with him. Josh Jacobs is a bruiser. Saquon Barkley breaks every freaking tackle, even though he's not playing as well this year. Like, the running backs in the league are great. That was a side tangent. I apologize. But Jahmyr Gibbs looked phenomenal tonight, and the Lions look phenomenal. On the flip side, I think the Bucs will be okay. What sucks for the Bucs, Mike Evans, they're saying probably broke his collarbone and probably done for the year. That's brutal, man. That's brutal. It looks like the 1K streak is going to come to an end, which regardless, like getting 1K in today's NFL and these 18-week seasons isn't as big of a feat as it once was. Mike Evans is beloved. It still would have been cool to see him get it. It's tough for the Bucs, and they've been winning games without players all year. They've been very injured, but as we saw with the Niners against the Bucs, it always feels like with injuries, there's a breaking point. And when the Niners lost Fred Warner, they didn't look the same the rest of that game against the Bucs last week. And the same can be said about the Bucs losing Mike Evans against the Lions tonight. It was tough to watch. And that's a very respected veteran receiver. We don't know how much more Mike Evans we're going to have in the NFL. So to see that, it was tough. And Emeka Egbuka, he's great, and he's going to really need to step up rest of the year. Chris Godwin will be back. The Bucs have enough weapons on offense to be okay, but not all those weapons are available right now. Bucky Irving's out. Chris Godwin's out right now. The Bucs are going to have to, they look great, but, this was an alarming loss tonight. Baker didn't look completely sharp. Granted, he had a lot of pressure on him. The Bucs aren't perfect, and we knew that, but it almost felt like a fairy tale run up to this point, and tonight kind of brought the Bucs down to earth a little bit. And when the Bucs are playing good, it's fun to watch, but they're going to have to figure some stuff out, and no Mike Evans for the rest of the year. That sucks. That's a leader in that locker room. That's a brutal loss for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they only scored 9 points tonight, which is tough. Not a great week for the NFC South teams. The NFC South has been a laughingstock of the NFL for a while. It's been pretty unanimously the worst division. And the Falcons, who people thought were good, kind of laid a goose egg in San Francisco, and the Bucs, who people really thought were good, and they still are good, didn't show up in Detroit. Tough for the NFC South, and you've got Carolina 4-3 there, which is like, how is Carolina 4-3? But they're getting it done. They're well coached, and yeah, man. So those are the games I really wanted to talk in depth about. Some other notes from Sunday, the London game, the final London game of the year. We've got 2 more international games. I'm a big fan of the international games. All my friends know that. I love the international games. I think they're great. The Dublin game earlier in the year was Steelers-Vikings. That was a fun game to watch. The 3 London games have been pretty hard to watch this year. Pretty hard to watch. The first 2 were just stinkers, Vikings-Browns, and then last week was Jets-Broncos. That was really bad. This week, a little different. Rams just absolutely smoked the Jags, 35-7. What I want to talk about here, no Puka for the Rams, and Stafford threw 5 touchdowns. I think it's pretty disrespectful that Stafford isn't in MVP talks right now. He's slinging it. And the discourse coming into the year was he hardly practiced in training camp. So it was like, oh my God, is Stafford even going to be available for the start of the year? No, he's been more than available. He's been awesome. And it was cool to see because the offense, it seemed like they relied on Puka so much. And then they went and did what they did against a really good Jacksonville defense. The way they did it, I think the fact that they go to Puka so much is less reflective of they rely on Puka and more reflective of Puka's just always open and Puka's just that good at football. It was eye-opening to watch the Rams. I think the NFC, man, is a bloodbath. The NFC is just like, are you kidding me? Like right now, there's like 10 teams in the NFC that I look at where I'm like, yeah, they probably should be a playoff team. Philly's 5-2. I'll talk about Dallas and Washington in a bit. The entire NFC North is 500 or better. Minnesota is the worst in the NFC North at 3-3. Chicago's 4-2. Green Bay's 4-1-1. Detroit's 5-2. The NFC South. Like, how is Carolina 4-3? I don't know. We know they're there, and I was just talking about Atlanta and Tampa as well. And then the NFC West, 3 5-2 teams. As a Niner fan, those wins against Seattle week 1 and LA, the Rams week 5, are becoming increasingly more important as the season goes on because all 3 of these teams just keep winning games. And whereas with Seattle and the Rams, we kind of see how they're winning the games. The Niners is just coaching and pure will. It doesn't feel like the Niners should be hanging with the Rams and Seahawks in the division, but they are. The NFC West is stacked. The NFC is stacked. The Rams are 5-2, and they're threats in the NFC. They're a Super Bowl team. They've got a Super Bowl caliber team, plain and simple. The Cowboys beat the Commanders 44-22. I think more of the headline from this game is reflective of Washington than Dallas. I think we know what Dallas is. Dallas is last year's Bengals. They have an unbelievable offense, a quarterback playing at an MVP level, and their defense is horrible. Their defense is one of the worst defenses we've seen in the National Football League in a while. Cincinnati's last year is the only one I can think of that was about as bad as Dallas's is this year. And, 44-22, good win. The offense is incredible. And now with CD back, I don't want to say it was a good thing that CD got hurt because it obviously wasn't. But having those weeks without CD, Dak and Pickens' chemistry, I feel like took many strides. And now we're watching the Cowboys, and it's like, oh my God, CD's over here, Pickens is over here, Javante's looking like rookie University of North Carolina Javante. He looks freaking awesome. Jake Ferguson's got a ton of catches and a ton of touchdowns. It's crazy, man. It's crazy to watch Dallas right now, and their offense is unbelievable. The defense is going to be the Achilles heel, and Eberflus is not a great defensive coordinator. And unfortunately for Cowboy fans, and not all Cowboy fans are like this, but I think some Cowboy fans might get some false hope from this game, thinking the defense is improved. In reality, the Commanders, man, to think they were in the NFC Championship a year ago, and now they're 3-4. It's tough. It's tough, man. And part of the story is injuries. You've got Jaden Daniels got hurt for a second time. It looked bad. It sounds like it's not anything serious, but I'd be surprised if he didn't miss a game or two with his hamstring injury. Terry McLaurin's been out forever, it seems like. Deebo Samuel's been dealing with a heel injury all year, and finally they pulled him they said, you're not playing in this game, and he was out this game. I mean, they're down their top 3 wide receivers and their quarterback right now, as this podcast is being recorded right now. And that's brutal. And guess who they have on the schedule coming up? Kansas City, then Seattle, then Detroit. Washington's in a tough spot because they were just in the NFC Championship a year ago, and the run they went on was phenomenal. This year, it feels like the NFC is a lot better, and Washington isn't a lot worse, but they're not better than they were last year. So I think they're just getting lapped by some of the NFC right now. They're still going to be in the wild card conversation by the end of the year because they have a stud at quarterback and they have a pretty good defense. But yeah, man, it's tough to watch. The Monday Nighter tonight, Seattle. I was just talking about the NFC West a little bit. Seattle beat Houston. Houston's got some issues, man. And you know what? Maybe they beat the Niners this week, but Houston's got some serious issues on offense. Their defense is elite. I think for me, the top 3 defenses in the league are Denver, and then these 2 defenses, Seattle and Houston. They're elite. I mean, Houston's defense generated 3 turnovers tonight, and they lost the game. Houston got a defensive touchdown. Will Anderson got a strip sack fumble recovery in the end zone off Sam Darnold. And they're only scoring 19 points as a team. The offense is an issue. Nico Collins got hurt tonight. CJ Stroud is getting pressure every snap. Like, their offensive line has been a glaring issue, and it didn't get any better this offseason. They traded away Laramie Tunsil, who I get's on the older side, but Houston's got some serious issues, man. It sucks because 2 years ago, after CJ Stroud's rookie year, we were looking at them like, oh, man, Houston's for real. But it's tough right now, man. It's tough. And you know what? I guess they were in the divisional round last year, so they're not that far removed from being like a good team. But last year, they got to the divisional round on the coattails of a run game and defense. The run game's not there this year, and the defense still is, but the defense can only do so much. On the flip side, Seattle has an equally elite defense, and they're scary, man. They hit, they get after the quarterback. Sam Darnold looks good this year, man. He has those little mishaps every once in a while, but he looks good. And JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL right now, for sure. Top 5 or top 6. So Seattle's good, man. Seattle's really good, and I don't like them because I'm a 49er fan, but, they're a fun team to watch. I hate to admit it, they just are, and they're scary, man. The NFC is a bloodbath. I keep saying that. I keep reiterating it, but it's true. The NFC is stacked this year. The final thing I want to touch on, the Dolphins have to blow it up. The Dolphins, this is so cooked. This operation is so cooked in Miami right now. Mike McDaniel has clearly lost the locker room. The locker room does not respect McDaniel right now, and it's funny because a coach with like the personality of McDaniels is kind of laid back, like cool, funny, sarcastic guy. It works when you're winning games because you see your offense just going crazy, and you go, man, this guy, he's this quirky coach, but you know what? You can't deny what he's doing on offense. What he's doing isn't working right now. He's lost that locker room. Tua is just a mess. It feels like Tua regresses every year. The O-line isn't great in Miami, so it's not helping Tua. But, the knock on this Miami team for under Mike McDaniel, even when it was working, was, they're good in like domes and they're good at home in Florida weather. They were in Cleveland in the rain. Okay. Rain game, it was like 40-mile-per-hour winds. We can excuse it if like the offense isn't like functioning smoothly or anything. To lose 31-6 to another one-win team coming into the game, this operation needs to be overhauled. Like, the Dolphins need to look at their roster, and they probably need to say, yeah, Jalen Waddle, you can stay. Achane, you can stay. Maybe keep an edge rusher like Jalen Phillips or someone on defense. And then the rest of you, then we're building a new culture, and we're bringing in a culture setter. I was just talking about this earlier with the Niners and Lions. They have a football culture. And when there's injuries, it doesn't matter. There's no excuses. They hit, they play physical. This Miami team does not have a culture, right? The second guys start going down, it's not, I got to replace him. Because you know what? Miami, this is going to sound stupid, but they're too reliant on the talent, right? Of course, you lean on your talent. Every team does. You lean on your best players. I get it. But there's got to be an expectation because talent is never going to stay healthy, right? One of your talented players is bound to get hurt at some point. And in Miami, it feels like when one of those guys goes down, it's like, well, what are we going to do? Whereas in like Detroit, it's like their DBs, their corners are going down. They're playing freaking six stringers coming into the year, and they're out there playing their asses off. It's like you can't. Miami has no football culture, and it's very obvious to watch. And Tua, who grew up in Hawaii, went to Alabama, and plays football in Miami, looked just horrible in rainy, windy weather in Cleveland. Just horrible. And what's crazy is like they have some bad. Like Jalen Waddle is an elite wide receiver talent. Devon Achane, I've talked about him a couple times over this podcast, is an elite running back talent, like elite speed. And Devon Achane's like carving up the Cleveland defense, but it's like, yeah, we're down 21. It doesn't matter because like the second Achane gets a chunk run, even behind his horrible O-line, Tua throws just a horrible pick. And it's like Tua needs to go, McDaniel needs to go. I think fan bases a lot of times are too quick to jump at the fire the head coach, fire the quarterback thing, or get rid of the quarterback. And I think with some fan bases, like I heard it from Cowboy fans with Dak, right? This offseason is like, yeah, it's time to move off Dak. We need to see Joe Milton. Maybe we draft a guy. And it's like, okay, maybe Dak isn't a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. This is the dialogue before the year. Obviously, he's changing some people's opinions this year, but maybe Dak isn't an MVP, Super Bowl level quarterback. But it's like, okay, you get rid of Dak, who are you going to replace him with? Because the NFL doesn't have 32 starting caliber quarterbacks. They just don't. So it's like you can get rid of Dak, but who are you going to bring in? With Miami, I thought that was kind of the same logic with Tua for a while. It's like, yeah, Tua doesn't look great, but it's like if you go to another quarterback, are you going to be able to bring in someone who operates the offense better than Tua? I'm at that point where I'm like, yeah, you'll be able to. I think it's pretty safe to say you'll be able to find someone who operates better than Tua. That's not the quarterbacks on the roster. It's not Quinn Ewers or Zach Wilson. We know that, but Miami is a mess. They need to blow up the operation, and that is that. And that's all the notes I have for Week 7 of the NFL season. Really fun week. A lot of offense, a lot of big plays, a lot of big performances. It was fun to watch. Next week is a hell week, man, because next week we've got 6 bye weeks. No international game next week, but, next week on bye, you've got Detroit, Vegas, LA Rams, Arizona, Seattle, and Jacksonville. I'll still be here to preview it for you guys because there are some interesting games this week. Minnesota Chargers is the Thursday night game. That'll be fun. Dallas Denver will be fun. Green Bay Pittsburgh on Sunday night will be fun. And then the Monday nighter is Commanders Chiefs. And if Jaden Daniels is there for that, that'll be a cool game. Right now, Kansas City is 10-point favorites in that game. So I'll be here later in the week to preview those games, give you guys some betting props, some fantasy football players to start, and just preview Week 8 as a whole, but for now, Week 7's in the books. I appreciate everyone tuning in. This is episode 2. This is the first NFL pod, so I hope if there's anyone, this is their first time watching an Offset and Penalties podcast because they didn't care about the first one being because it was UFC, welcome. I appreciate you more than anything for being here, listening to me yap about sports for right now coming on 38 minutes, and I appreciate you guys a lot, and UFC pod later in the week, UFC 321. So we're going to preview that. We're going to preview NFL Week 8. And, of course, we'll be there to recap both those things next week. I appreciate you guys. Catch ya.